Right. Yes, we're on again to Book Chat, where we talk about books, we chat with those who have taken the trouble to write a book, to put their thoughts together. But you know what we're doing today? It's going to be a lot of talk that sports lovers will love. All those of you who are Arsenal fans, Real Madrid, stationery stores, shooting stars, Rangers International, well, maybe you would stay back a little bit and let's look at UEFA. Let's look at the European Championship. And you'll be wondering, who is my guest today? My guest is Dr. Miriam Olugbodi. And she started her education at the University of Ilorin, where she earned her Bachelor's of Arts degree in English with a major in English statistics in 2010. Later, she obtained a Master's of Arts degree a few years later, again majoring in English statistics. Her interest in exploring language variation across linguistic disciplines led her to a foray into phonetics, which is also has specialization at the PhD level. While she explores language variation in poetry, African poetry to be precise, and football commentaries. You know, those of you who remember Okonkwo and all the names he gave to Odegbami, the mathematician, and all of that. But in this case, we're moving on to the Championships League final matches. In her BA and MA researches, through the lens of stylistics, she took a sojourn into the world of phonetics at the doctoral level, like I said, by examining phonetic variations in Nigerian newscasters' rendition. In addition to the academic degrees, Dr. Olugbodi has pursued various professional certifications to enhance her expertise. For instance, in 2015, she obtained a postgraduate diploma in education, PGDE, from the National Teachers Institute in Kaduna, Nigeria. She also earned professional certificates in community journalism and entrepreneurial journalism from Rudin in Russia. Dr. Olugbodi's research interests are diverse, encompassing stylistics, linguistic stylistics, discourse analysis, critical stylistics, phonetics, acoustic phonetics, clinical and laboratory phonetics, social linguistics, world Englishes, and post-colonial varieties of English. Do you still want me to continue? Well, instead of continue, why don't we just meet Dr. Miriam Olugbodi. You're welcome to the program, madam.
Thank you very much. Good evening from Nigeria. Good
Yes,
afternoon. Good morning from wherever you're joining us.
good.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
I am sure people from different parts of the world will be watching this at their own time and listening to you. Um, but let me find out from you first. What
Okay.
motivated your focus on the 2011 and 2012 UEFA Championships League match, final match commentaries, specifically as opposed to other seasons or matches?
Thank you very much. In response to that question, I'm going to first of all digress a little bit from that question to give a kind of background.
Okay.
We all know that before the emergence of social media and all other platforms where football becomes so easy to watch, back in those days, even people who listen to football matches on transistor radios, such that when you are listening to it, even though you cannot view the actual play-by-play events on the field, while you listen to the commentators, you are always driven such that some people, if you cannot hold it, you're going to have a heart attack by the information passed across by the football commentators. And this actually is what actually motivated me into looking at soccer commentaries. Okay, if I look back into my undergraduate degree, I explored an African poetry collection It is titled It Will Take Time by Femi Abodunrin. So I
Mm,
explored the world of poetry from the stylistic perspective at that time. And when I wanted to proceed to my master's, I thought of, okay, let me continue statistics, but where else do I want to go? I want to go into, okay, instead of exploring something literary this time, let me look for a linguistic material to explore. And by the time I started looking around for linguistic material, I said, okay, because when I say linguistic materials, it has to be something that is linguistic. And as soccer commentary is a kind of genre of language use, or let me say, in the field of sports, soccer is one of the categories of sports that we have, and commentaries. And when I say commentaries, I'm not talking about post-football commentary. I'm talking about the actual play-by-play and color-adding event on the field. That is actually what attracted me. And in most cases, when we look at these play-by-play and color-adding commentaries, we realize that they are full of different structures. Let's say, for instance, the commentator is saying, okay, now carry passes to Savi, and then again, okay, no, last year, it's it looks like kind of disjointed. But even though it
mm,
is disjointed, it is so captivating that the mind and soul of what listeners or even viewers is involved in this activity. So that's the color, the beauty of that kind of language use is actually what attracted me to looking at soccer commentaries, because soccer that commentary is actually an integral part of the actual sport event.
mm.
Thank you.
Well, did you play any sports yourself, or what interested you in sports? Because there was a time when on social media, women were always complaining that their husbands were were not paying them attention because they were paying a lot of attention to the football matches. And there seemed to be a lot of Nigerians, even pastors, who talk about Arsenal and pray for Chelsea and read Madrid and all of that. But are you a sports lover yourself? And which of the team do you support? Or this is purely an academic venture for you?
Yes, I cannot say that I'm not a lover of sport, because right from, let me say, maybe secondary school days, I watch football matches. In fact, I remember those days when there are matches, you run back from school to watch the match. Those that they play at night, those that they play in the afternoon, even the local league, the national league, we watch. But watching those football those days is give me some kind of inspiration, because everybody is happy, you forget your troubles and everything. Especially the commentary aspect of the football is what has always always exciting. I find it so captivating because, even if you are not on the field to see, but people relate the actual event to you, and that is actually what motivates. Either you are seeing it or not, but these days we all have access to watching this football online. Even if you cannot be part of the live event, you can watch it online subsequently. But in those days, people use transistor radios to watch it. So I'm a lover
Mm.
of football, and that is actually what I've watched it. It is not because of research that I delved into commentaries. I've watched football and I still enjoy watching football. Thank you very
So
much.
are you a gunner, or you are the sky is always blue?
Okay, let me say, I think there's a go. Yes, you can say I'm a Chelsea fan.
Oh yeah, oh the sky is always blue.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if I knew that, I would have gone ahead and make sure to expose. All right. Let's get back into the meat of the book itself.
All right.
Which linguistic or stylistic theories or frameworks guided your analysis, and why were they appropriate for this kind of sports commentary?
Thank you very much. I actually, in evaluating the linguistic language variation in the football commentaries, I went to its conceptual framework rather than theory, and I chose linguistic stylistic concepts. Then I went a little bit into rhetorics,
Mm,
because we cannot detach rhetorics from stylistics. So while I looked at few stylistic tools such as language choices, lexical choices, then aside from lexical choices, I look at lexical semantic structures. When I say lexical choices, you know that at the level of lexis, naming is so much a lot of features that we use in football. Naming, because names of players are nominal, they belong to the noun categories. And if you look at football clubs and football match, I mean clubs too, they are rendered in. Then in most of the histories that they dwell into while giving us a color adding aspect of the football, why not actually relating the play by play event? They still make mention of some places. Maybe a player has been there before, or maybe an activity so I use lexical semantic choices. So I look at what classes, and I look at the way they use adjectives, because football commentators, the football commentators for the actual field event, they make use of so many adjectives, they make use of adverbs in words, both lexical and structural. So they make, and that is actually what adds the color to the event,
Mm.
because we know that these word categories, they are actually those that. But despite the fact that the language, aside the lexical semantic choices, I mentioned rhetoric earlier, that aside, so when talking about rhetoric, not the fact that the words or the structures are disjointed sometimes doesn't mean that they are not actually beautiful. So we cannot remove rhetorical tools or devices from these soccer commentaries. We come across metaphors, they use simile, and we know that these are part of tropes that are tools of what? Of rhetoric in football commentaries. So football commentary, it's not dry. Aside the fact that it is, but it appeal to the listeners or viewers in motive sense, and those two that actually make them motivate listeners and viewers are the rhetorical tools that the
Mm.
commentators make use of. Thank you very
Would you
much. So
do me
I,
a
I
big
use
favor?
concept rather
Okay,
than theories.
other than theories. Would you do me a favor? If you have a copy of a book, could you just quickly flip through and read out one of the commentaries in which you analyzed? If you have
Thank
it,
you.
let's just listen from your own with your own voice what this commentator said in 2011 or 2012. Just pick the
Okay.
one you like the most that illustrates what you're trying to say to us
All right.
before we go
So
into the
I'm
next
going
question.
to I'm going to look at, okay, I'm almost there.
Mhm.
Okay, let me quickly look at the use of, okay, let me look at this. I call it score point datum one.
Mm.
Here we have Messi, Pedro, Messi, and oh my God, that would have been 2-1. Then we have it's Barcelona 1, Manchester United 1. Then we have here in Wembley, it's Barcelona 3, Manchester United 1. Goal number 57 this season, 12 in the Champions League. Rooney, 16th goal of the campaign and his fourth of the Champions League. So we have it in this manner. I'm going to take another piece now, which I call Datum 2. We have it here. A minute and a half to go, and it's 1-1. Here's his calls. It is one. It's not. If we look at these structures, we realize that it is not as if he has concluded something he was saying before. He shifted into saying another thing. Now he said, no, and Nova makes a score, and it is one.
Mm.
Chelsea, it is 2-1 down after. Nova against that. He scores. Oh, 3-1. All those. And we have excellent shot from Lampard, 3-2 to Munich. You know, those kind of, and those are the point where they are actually scoring. When we have scores. So aside these areas, let me look for something on the rhetoric. Let's see some rhetorical tools. Okay, under clipping. Okay, let's go to rhetoric quickly. Let me take us through. Okay, the ball is very much at the back now. So this one is a kind of knot of relating what is happening on the field. The ball is very much at the back at the moment. Barca lifted the Spanish title for the 21st time, third time in a row. There has been a little hard tackle at the midfield. What a great composure by Rooney and an excellent finish.
Mm.
So these are some of those lines. Bayern will settle for a throw-in. Oh, that was almost an own goal.
Mm,
Bayern
mm.
has gotten a better control of this first 20 minutes. Not much space out there. Munich unable to make progress though. They have the ball. The game is wide open. Both teams have come to attack here. No, but they relate
I,
the
I get a sense of it because by the time you talked about an own goal, in my head and in my mind, Godwin Odie is the guy that comes into my head because he's almost the one, the poster child of of scoring own goals. But I mean, I get the vibe of what you're saying. But let's go into this, dig deeper a little. What were the most striking stylistic differences or similarities between the 2 years' commentaries, and what might explain them, these differences or similarities?
All right. What is similar between these two, the stylistic features that we see there is I mentioned nominal nouns earlier. Both have a high level of usage of nominals.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have mainly the major class systems. And when we say
Mm.
major class systems, we have nouns, we have adverbs, we have adjectives. So those two are common to both of them. So quickly, I'll go to my findings where I did a kind of statistical analysis. And here we have nominals, like I said, is the highest, followed by verbs. So actions, because relating the field event is actually telling us the action that is going on in the field. So aside naming, verbs are the mostly used, but while we have high number of verbs, talking about nominals, both 2011 and 2012 final matches commentaries, they have the same level of nouns, the same percentage, but the verbs, we have more verbs in the 2012 than in the 2011, which is Chelsea, Bayern Munich than the Barca, Manchester United. Then that is followed by adverbs, then prepositions. You know, they have to give us details of places, positions, places, and that is why preposition is what follows adverbs.
Mm.
The preposition is what follows adverbs and adjectives. So those are the but even prepositions we have more in, so it is not consistent. While we
Okay.
have more in 2011, sometimes we have it in 2012 more than what we have in the Chelsea Bayern Munich.
Okay. Well, I can assure you, those who are moved in this area will definitely look for the book and get themselves a copy. But how did you define and categorize stylistic features in the context of live sports commentary? And what challenges did that pose?
Okay. I will start from when I want to start. It is a corpus. It is a corpus and it is a spoken kind of data. It is spoken. So the transcription process is where I'm going to start from. When I
Mm,
carried out this research was actually in 2012. And that's at that time, even though we have some tools for corpus analysis, I had to go through the trouble of doing my transcription. When I say transcription, transcribing from spoken to text, I had to do that manually. It was
mm,
just so stressful. So it spent so a long period of time at my system trying to figure out, okay, what did this person say? How am I going to put it down? So I went through that trouble. Then, when you say spoken, transcription. So transcription was actually the very first issue. So after transcribing, that is when I now started identifying from the transcript. I started identifying the words, starting from the word categories to the groups. When I say groups, the structures, maybe verbal, adjectival group, or to talking about the rhetorical features, which include metaphor, simile, and personification. Sometimes they compare entities both from the source domain to the target domain. So it took a long period of time for me to do all this
I
and
can
put
imagine.
everything.
Anybody who's done conversation analysis like I have done,
But
the
I
only thing,
was doing it passionately, so passionately, because it's
yes,
actually what
I just deal with text and I don't bother transcribing from that. but I also know that there's a big body of works of patient physician data sets on what they say and how they say it, and all those annotation. It could be really mind-boggling,
Of
to
course.
go through all of these and be able to analyze. But to what extent do you think the stylistic choices of commentators affect audience perception or engagement during high-stake matches?
Yes, the commentaries, the languages of the commentators is actually what drive the event. Without that, I don't think there will be anything like some soccer, because the commentators are actually the ones that they are the ones that had life into the football match. They are the
Mm,
ones. So aside you watching, especially for those that are not on site, even when you are on site, those messages, the next seconds when you are away from your mind away, or maybe you are distracted, that voice brings you back to the field event. So their language use is actually captivating. It appeals to viewers and listeners' emotive sense, whether you are on site or you are watching it from wherever, or maybe you are a listener. So their language use is actually what drives the actual event.
mm. Well, you're still on to book chat, and we have the privilege of chatting with Dr. Miriam Olugbodi, and she has written a book about the commentaries of 2011 and 2012. So, did the language use would you say the language used differ based on the commentators' cultural or national backgrounds? And how did you account for that in your analysis?
Yes, in my methodology, I gave background information about the commentators, because we have one German commentator in one of the football. That is, I think, Chelsea Bayern Munich, while the other person is an English commentator. So the background really does not really affect the background, whether the context, whether you are English, or in as much as it is the same field event, even though they have different background, the context where they're coming from is not actually the determinant of the differences in the commentaries. It is actually the event that structure their language.
Mm.
It is the event they relate that structure their language. It's not their background that have impact on whatever they relate to listeners or viewers. So differences in their context don't really impact on the language of football commentaries.
Well,
But individual differences, we have different repertoire, linguistic repertoire, in terms of skills and attributes. So that is actually the only thin line that we have there. Your language use might be more highly developed than mine. So that is the kind of, but the context where they come from doesn't really impact on the language use.
I see the commentators also try to raise tension. And I'm not going
Okay.
to accuse them of being responsible for the high blood pressure some of the viewers have been reported to have. Oh, it's going to, oh, sorry, it's not a goal, and that kind of thing. The way they raise their voice, the crescendo, and how they describe things. I mean, I'm conversant with the Nigerian commentators, and I know that they use very flowery language, in order to
Yes.
paint a picture in the minds of
Oh,
those who are watching the game. And they say football is a beautiful game because
yeah.
of all the things that have happened. But would you in any way be interested in the politics of sports? How has the politics in FIFA affected the quality of play? And because it's the play, without the play, the commentators have nothing to talk about.
Of
Do
course.
you think that with this new introduction of is it VR they call it, or those things, they play back very quickly to be sure that the coaches took good decision? Is there any way you think that affects football and the tension that the commentators try to build up?
Of course, what we are discussing this time around is outside of linguistics, but of course, this impact on those, not only the commentaries, even the playback and all other politics impact on the perception of the viewers and listeners. Of course, it does. I agree with
Mm.
you. I can
So,
agree
who
with
is your
you.
favorite footballer of all time? Who are you going to
Uh,
choose? And why?
Please, I know, but can I avoid that question? Can I?
Okay.
Not avoid that question.
All right. Not a problem at all. Well, you know, programs like this, one will wish we can draw it on and continue. But I have a parting shot, a last question. And how might your findings inform future research in sports linguistics or the training of sports commentators?
Thank you very much. I Yes, my research is significant to the field of football commentaries in that it has looked at the various linguistic forms that are used, and like we said, the repertoire of the linguistic capabilities, skills, and knowledge of the commentators actually impact on it. And since it is the language use is what actually drive the event, it is important. My research has come up with few recommendations on how the commentators can actually be trained and how we can actually make that better, especially in this century. You know that those days, even when I carried out this research, watching football up and down has not been made easy. But these days, and the invention of tools such as AI tools and the likes, it is even easier for findings from this study could actually be beneficial when merged with. So for future research, for training of commentators, my findings are there are a lot of findings in this work, which include trainings of commentators, not only commentators, even recommendations for future researchers who want to actually delve into, because this is a work in progress. It is not actually a done deal. We can still go back and look at, okay, this thing, is it this way presently? Because if you look at the time till present, the world is evolving. So there are so many findings that are actually I'm presently working on looking at, okay, how can language of commentaries can be improved with the introduction of generative AI in the 21st century. So this is a kind of taking a step ahead from this previous research, which I hope at the end of the day too is going to come out in the version of another book.
Hmm. Well, when that other book comes out, be sure that Book Chat will be on hand to welcome you again to talk to our viewers about your book. Well, without much ado, I would like to say a very big thank you on behalf of all those who will watch this and all those who would engage your book. And I'm sure your book can be found on Amazon and can be found on other platforms. Is there any special place, again, where the book can be found for
Yes,
now?
it is the publisher of the book is Green Verlag, a German company, a publishing company. That is the major, but Green Verlag has distributed the book across all other publishing outlets who could actually facilitate its sales. So it is everywhere. So
Hmm.
it is everywhere. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Until next time when we come your way, we remain yours sincerely, Book Chat, saying keep on chatting with authors and keep on reading books because readers, like they say, are leaders. And researchers make the world comprehensible for a lot of us. They try to put some kind of order in the chaos of phenomena. So thank you very much, Dr. Olugbodi. We'll come your way again. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers. Thank you, everyone.